guess what day it is. It's Monday, so it's Monday Market Memo. And I'm here to have a few guests. I have Jim Scarpa from Panther Home Inspection, and I have Jake Pekarski of the Bartos Group. Now, what are we talking about today? We got an inspector in the house, let me tell you. So it must be you have a contract, now what? And the now what comes from how do I get it to the point where I can close? And the first step in that, minus getting a loan, I might add, is an inspection. So Jim, tell everybody who Panther Home Inspection is and a little bit about you guys.
Sure. My name is Jim Scarpa. I'm with Panther Home Inspections. We're a full-service home inspection company, so we do all inspections that are needed to close on a house. The most popular ones, obviously, the general home inspection, which we're checking everything in the home. Termite inspections are also popular. Air quality and mold inspections, where we take an air sample from the house or each air conditioning system. We send it out to the lab. We get air test results back. It can tell us if there's elevated mold spores in the air. Radon gas for those on water, seawall and dock inspections. Insurance inspections, wind mitigation for your hurricane insurance, and 4-point inspections for your homeowner's insurance. Normally those are needed for homes that are more than 30 years old.
Okay. Now, you just went through a whole bunch of inspections, and I love it that you did, but a lot of our buyers, first of all, for those of you out there, the buyer gets to pick the inspector, not the seller. So hopefully a buyer picks a great inspector like Panther Home Inspection, because just like a doctor, there's good ones and there are bad ones. So we went through that whole list of things, and for those of you that haven't bought in our area, although paradise and amazing, it is a little bit harsh on our environment and our homes. Would you agree?
Yes.
So you talked about termites. First of all, it's not if you get termites, it's when you get termites.
Correct.
And so we want to know if there's any active termites. And the kinds that we have here, Jim, aren't the ones typically that come up from the ground, the subterranean. They're the ones that fly in.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that, because do you do that you guys yourself, or do you outsource it to one of the companies?
We outsource it to a licensed termite and pest control company.
Right.
So we're getting the best inspection possible for the buyer. Typically, a lot of the houses here have a lot of concrete, either block, but the roof is typically wood. There's wood framing inside the house. And Mary, as you said, it's only a matter of time. We always recommend that people get a termite and pest control company to do service on the house once a year to prevent those things from occurring. And of course, when you're buying, make sure you don't have those problems.
Absolutely. So that may not be everyone's used to. You also talked to seawall inspection. Talk a little bit about that.
Right. If you're on water, there's a seawall. Some of the seawalls that are original should really be checked. We would always recommend to a buyer to check an original seawall. If it's been replaced in the last 10, 15 years, it's probably in good shape. It's worth checking, but less critical. But I would say anytime there's an original seawall, that should be checked.
Absolutely. And seawalls are kind of expensive. Right now we're getting quotes on, if there's a house on it, $350 to $450 a linear foot. So if you have 80 feet of seawall, that can be a lot of money. In my case, I have 185 feet of seawall. So when I have to go to replace that, I'm taking out a loan. Yeah. So I want to know what's happening with our seawalls. So that's great to know. Now, you also mentioned mold. That's a scary topic for a lot of folks. So talk a little bit about that.
We live in a tropical environment here. There is a lot of moisture in the air, and there's going to be mold.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as a little bit of surface mold on a closet rack.
Yeah.
In it, or an area in the home where there's not a lot of airflow. It could be mold in the air conditioning system, the coil, the ductwork, and then it's blowing around your house and you're breathing it, which is not a good situation. You could have water damage from a roof leak, from a plumbing leak, that could be hidden behind a wall, that may not be apparent visually, and mold will grow. If there's food and if there's moisture, mold will grow.
And when he says food, that means drywall.
I mean, anything organic, yeah, drywall, wood.
It like this little meow 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 meow. Now that's kind of bad to say with mold, but there are ways. You don't have to be scared of mold. There are ways that we treat mold. that you don't have to cut everything out. We've got some great companies that will do that, but you wanna know going in what you have, because if you are highly allergic to mold like I am, you know, it could be problematic to your health.
Right. It's not a surprise you want later on.
Yeah, now radon is something a little unusual. We hear that a lot in the Midwest where I was come from, but talk about it down here.
Radon isn't indigenous to our soil here,
Yeah.
except in some very isolated cases. It's usually in stone. Most of the time when we see it here, it's because of construction materials. So the concrete, the aggregate in the concrete, a home with a tremendous amount of natural stone tiles, travertines, marbles, granites. Sometimes that material will carry the radon into the home.
Yeah.
It's very simple to mitigate if you know it's there.
Now, AC units. We run our AC, I run mine every day. I may turn off for a little bit during the day, but even when it's cold in the winter, I'm running my AC. So AC units get a lot of use down here. Talk about that a little bit with the inspection.
It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, pretty much, with the exception of a few days in winter. It's important, number one, we always tell our customers to get an annual service on their air conditioning system.
Right.
Change your filters every month and get an annual service. And part of the annual service, they should open up the air conditioning system and make sure that the coil is clean. Because of the humidity in the air, and especially if you're the type of person that likes to open up all your windows and doors in the certain times of year, and the air conditioning is running at the same time, it draws a lot of humidity into the system.
Right.
And you can start to build up mold on your coil, you could start to build up mold in your ductwork, and then it gets transferred around the house continuously, and then you're breathing it. So it's always good to make sure that that's clean when you buy the home, and to make sure you do a regular service to make sure that it stays clean.
Absolutely, and for those of you are looking for, I think I did an interview with Speedy Air Conditioner a couple years ago on UV lights. I personally have one in my own home. I told you I'm highly allergic to mold, and it gets all of the organisms that are out there and breaks them up so that they're not going through my entire house. So we'll make sure we put a link to that down below, because it is a great, if you do own in this area, it's a great resource to know about that. We're in COVID right now, and people are a little hesitant to have people in their home. So what happens with the inspection? What are you guys doing during that period?
Right away when this happened, we started to wear gloves and face masks inside the home, clean our hands before we go in, clean them again when we come out with
An antibacterial.
antibacterial, thank you.
I'm helping you out here.
We also try and discourage a lot of people from being in the home during the inspection. Sometimes, a lot of people will show up. We encourage people to, least number of people as possible. Certainly the buyers are welcome and encouraged to be there so that they can see what's happening and understand the inspection results. But it's best right now that the least number of people as possible in the home.
And to that end, usually as a realtor, we would go out and attend, and many times right now, depending on the owner, they're asking us not to open the door. We have a licensed inspector in the home. If the buyer wants to go in with you, they can, but they're also going to get a big report, because sometimes when they're there, they're asking you a lot of questions, which you could miss something because you're distracted, right?
Right. Yeah. It happens. We have some buyers that are very, very involved, and it makes the inspection a little more difficult because of that. But we have to do what the customers want.
That's right. It's their right from that perspective. I'm going to come back to you with anything else that you think of, because I'm going to introduce Jake Pekarsky, and Jake is with Bartos Group. He's our transaction manager, and Jake is responsible for every single inspection negotiation that we have at the Bartos Group. So this year we'll help over 300 families. And the man to have on your side is Jake. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, there are different things in the contract, and different things going to mean that it comes out with that inspection report. So, Jake, talk a little bit about, when you receive an inspection report, what are the first things that you're looking for?
Right, so the roles are going to be a lot different depending on who we're working with, whether a buyer or seller, but the very first things I reference is within this report, you're going to get a summarized items of items needing attention. Doesn't always mean that they're defective or that they're major items, but yeah, we'll go through. There's, of course, it's gonna depend on the type of contract you're on, which items we're gonna be referencing for requests. Like there are some items in your mold air quality test on the standard contract where aspergillus, it's a type of mold, an allergenic, non-toxic mold that is considered cosmetic. A lot of people, especially northerners who aren't familiar with that, are going to come down and be concerned. So it's an education process, and that's why we work with companies such as Panther. They've been here for 10 years, a very credible company who can actually educate our customers throughout that process. And then there's going to be some items that, may be legitimate defective items of concern, such as air conditioning that's not cooling within industry standards. Differentials, we see those on quite a bit of reports that's cooling outside of, I think it's around 15 to 21 degrees.
Right.
So, the severity of the items varies quite often, but, going through those reports and having local vendors such as plumbers, electricians to, again, help educate the buyer through that process adds a lot of value.
Now, I know there's some things to think about that, when you're either buying or selling in this process, like, it's a home, it's gonna have stuff on the report, right?
They live in the home. This is normal. Don't be concerned all the time that, there's a lack of maintenance going on. We've sold homes to contractors, and even we've sold homes that were owned by contractors and home inspectors. They've had inspections done, and there's an inspection list. It's normal, and it can be resolved. That's why we work with a great team again of vendors to quickly go in, address any concerns, again educate, and set up remediation.
We at the Bartos Group, that's also why we have Jake, because you can have a varying degree, just like I mentioned with inspectors, you can have that with agents. You can have, like a doctor, a poor doctor or a good doctor, a bad attorney or a good attorney. You want someone that knows that contract inside and out, and they know what's appropriate to ask for and what's not. And if you're a seller, to, make sure the buyer's, stepped off the ledge.
Right.
And if you're a buyer, to make sure you're not going in and asking for things that are, to the moon.
Right. And a great agent will actually be concerned with both how the buyer and seller are doing. You want a successful closing, and not only just for your own customer, but how the buyer is feeling if you're working with the seller is going to impact how successful the closing is. So you want to make sure you have a qualified agent that can relieve a lot of the pressure that can be built up in these scenarios and redirect everyone back towards a successful closing.
I love that you talked about a qualified agent, because that also goes back to writing the contract, because there's multiple ways to write a contract. We're not attorneys, but we know the tools that we've been given. We won't go into the details of this right now. We'll save it for another session, for another memo.
Yeah, how much time we got?
Yeah, probably not enough. But I think at the end of the day is you're going to have a really great inspector, and then you want somebody to make sure they know what to do with that inspection. Now, we didn't touch on wind mitigation in the front part, because this is really critical with wind mitigation for our insurance. And Jim, talk a little bit about that.
Sure, the wind mitigation is for the insurance company, and it tells the insurance company how your house is constructed with regard to the items that are specific to hurricane protection. So it tells how the roof is attached to the walls, how the decking is attached to the roof, what type of roofing is on, does it have secondary water resistance, how old the roof is, and the opening protection, garage doors, entry doors, and windows. What level of hurricane protection do they have, if any? Then the insurance company knows how to rate the insurance based on the risk. Typically, a house that's built under the new building codes, which
2002?
anything permitted on or after March 1st of 2002, would not need it, but it's always best to check with your insurance company. And even in that case, sometimes it's good to have it, because if your house is built better than the building code, so better hurricane protection, newer roof, you will get discounts. So it's a small amount of money to pay to get some very sizable, in some cases, discounts on your hurricane insurance.
Without a doubt. And while you're in there, it's actually a cheaper, not that you're cheap.
Less expensive.
Less expensive way to do it. But if you have the insurance company send their person out because you're looking at the ratings. Similarly, a 5-point inspection. Talk about that.
4 point, yeah.
4 points, sorry.
It's for, we'll throw in a fifth for free. It's for homeowners insurance, and it's similar to the wind mitigation, and it tells the insurance company about your home so that they know how to rate your homeowners insurance. A little bit of information about the roof, what type of roof it is, how old it is, the electrical system, what type of electrical system, what type of service panel, how old it is, the plumbing, what type of plumbing is in the house, how old it is, has it ever been replaced, and the air conditioning system as well, what type of air conditioning and the age of air conditioning system.
You know, again, if you're coming from a different part of the country, I just had a conversation with a client yesterday about our insurance types, which we'll save for another session. But these tools get you the best insurance you possibly can for the house that you're gonna buy. Knowing the game you're in advance of closing is always critical. And if you have a mortgage, you have to have insurance. If you don't have to. It's a risk that some people are willing to take. So, Jake, any other thoughts that you wanted to give to our listeners today?
No, I just wanted to reiterate the importance again of having a team, having a qualified agent that has a team of, again, vendors that can address your concerns as quick as possible and get you right back on track.
Absolutely. Anything else, Jim?
Just, it's an important purchase for everyone. It's probably the most valuable asset that anyone owns is buying a home.
Yeah.
So get the inspections you need, ask the questions, don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions. We're happy to answer.
Absolutely. I can't say anything better than what these two gentlemen said. Next Monday, I don't know the date of that, June maybe 25th, I'm not sure. We're going to have one of our lenders on again to talk about the market because it's ever changing, Peter Podnoff. We want to thank Jim Scarpa and Jake Pekarsky from taking time out of their day to join us. If there's questions, we'll come back to those later. If we have any additional questions, you can private message either one of these gentlemen or call us. How do they reach you, Jim?
239-389-0996.
Perfect. And Jake?
239-394-3040.
I'm at the same number. That's our office number. Again, I'm Mary Bartos with the Bartos Group of Premier Plus Realty. And we look forward to seeing you here in Paradise, getting an inspection on your new home. Thanks.